Felicity March, and I'm the Resilience and Security Director for IBM. A very interesting title. I have resilience and security in my title, so let me explain why. When I walk into companies and ask them what they need to recover and how quickly, a bank will tell me they want to make sure their clients have access to money. A hospital will tell me that they want to make sure clients, that their patients have the ability to make sure their records are read by their doctors. And of course, retailers, and especially now, are saying, make sure my website is up and running. Now, the thing is, when we are looking at disaster recovery and true resilience, we are used to traditional disaster recovery, and in came cyber attacks, and especially destructive cyber attacks. In 2017, it was not a good year when NotPetya hit and 3,000 companies were affected. The problem we have in the industry is when we are looking at a destructive cyber attack, it takes companies down in a unique and interesting way. It's not that cloud goes down or an application goes down or a database goes down. It can be a catastrophic yet plausible attack. You know as well as I do some of the financial data and the financial hits that companies have had through cyber attacks and destructive cyber attacks and ransomware. So the reason that I have resilience and security as a role is I need to make sure that companies are secure, but they can also maintain core purpose and integrity under duress, under attack, and during recovery. When I speak to clients, it's really interesting. I had a conversation with a client yesterday who said, Flick, make sure my website's back up and running in 5 minutes. That's business risk appetite. When I look at the IT risk stance, the SLA on the mainframe had been negotiated by procurement as a 24-hour best endeavours SLA, and the database administrator had such a large database that it would have taken at least 22 hours to restore. So business risk appetite might have been 5 minutes, but the IT risk stance was a number of hours, and in fact, a number of days, should they have the ability to restore correctly. And as we all know, backup is easy, restore is hard. So let me try and explain this problem a little bit more. I walk into companies and say, what's your minimum viable company? What key processes do you need to keep functioning to make sure you can maintain your integrity and do your functions, and also make sure that you're delivering what you need to? And sometimes this is critical infrastructure nationally and internationally. The answers I get back are sometimes very scary. I would say 50% of CIOs will say, I don't know what my minimum viable company is. I'm not too sure all the key processes that I would need to keep running. I do know that I've got 45,000 end user devices and 6,000 servers and X amount of suppliers running the IT industry, but don't actually know what their minimum viable company is and the key processes. But 50% of them do. And 50% will say it's my retail website, it's my shipping, it's my manufacturing. When I then reach in and say, what are the technology, people, and processes you're reliant on for that one part of your business? Again, the answer is, I don't know. Now, it's not because people aren't in control. What happened in the early 90s, for those of you that are my age, well, you'll remember that we were towered. And in those days, it was mainframe, mid-range, server, end user, desktop, applications, database. And it all sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Because 30 years later, we all sit in our towers. And in fact, our roles are defined by towers. Our procurement is defined by negotiating services for towers. But let me give you this perspective. You've got all these vertical towers of all your technology stacks that you have and suppliers that are delivering services and contracts aligned that way. But when I say to a bank, access to clients' money, or hospitals, access to patient records, that's a vertical flying through the whole line of the towers to make sure that we can actually keep that business process running. Now we have a sort of potential perfect storm. We have a lot of destructive hackers out there that want to take companies down, but we also have a lack of investment in business continuity and disaster recovery, because it's always the insurance policy. And I know some of you will be actively nodding your heads when you know that that is the one thing that's taken out of the budget or the one thing that's taken out of the cost case, which is disaster recovery and backup. I get to see even worse stories that don't even hit the press when we're looking at cyber attacks, but I also get to see how companies have woefully underinvested in their ability to recover at the speed their business needs to recover them at. So what I see is I hear banks saying we haven't rebooted our servers since 2015. We're too worried they won't come back up. I've got major companies that say our disaster recovery environment is 6% of my production environment. They don't know what they would even fail over. Even with companies that have disaster recovery and they do their test once a year where it takes 8 weeks to prepare, we all hold our breath and then we tick the box and we move on till next year. Actually, disaster recovery and full recovery should be happening every quarter. We should be getting muscle memory and recognizing that destructive cyber attacks can really take you down and not get you back up. Now, the thing is, what we need to do is make sure that we are building it into the architecture. You will hear me talk a lot about DevSec, ResOps, but what we're finding is a lot of companies are only even looking at security now and the risks that security will have and the vulnerabilities within your system. When I say, when was the last time you tried to recover or simulate a recovery when there has been a destructive cyber attack, the answer is no, we haven't done it. And I have so many people that say, well, we'll worry about that later. And then, of course, we get phone calls where companies have gone down. And what happens is they go down and there is IT has been compromised. And sometimes a lot of things aren't working or some things aren't working. So we turn around to the security, and rightly so, the security team will say, I cannot recover you. The systems are not working correctly. You need to restore. So we turn around to IT operations and the restore team. And one of three things happens. One, I don't do cyber. Don't do that kind of backup. Didn't realize cyber was in my bag. They do cyber. I don't do cyber. And we realize their backup is not sufficient for being able to restore. Two, they say, yeah, no problem. We can go restore. But the catastrophic attack from the hackers means that, well, one company alone that were hacked took 2.5 weeks before they even got their backup software working to find out that their backup was infected. Or actually what happens is they do successfully restore, but of course the security team now needs to do mean time to investigate and mean time to repair. And that can take days. And if you think about the revenue that the company needs to earn within those days, it is a significant financial loss. But the reason I'm passionate about this is the human loss and the human impact of IT going down. So what do we need to do about it? Well, what we need to do is make sure that people are understanding that resilience is hand in glove with security. Now, I have to protect companies from not only cyber attacks, but from floods and fires and pandemics and civil unrest to make sure that IT services continue to function. So I need to make sure that business processes work. I suppose the way I liken it is that data is now our river of, it's like a river of water. I no longer have to protect static data sets and just take a backup. I need to make sure that I am protecting that data flow of a company. Otherwise, the company no longer functions, and that is not acceptable in today's environment. So I am wanting the world to change into making sure that we're understanding the business processes and what lies underneath. If you imagine that IT is a car, we put all those towers together and the car runs, sometimes very fast, sometimes very slow, depending on what car you buy. But every part and every component knows that within that car knows that it's there to make sure that car can drive. What I'm finding is a very disturbing lack of correlation between business processes and business functions and IT. And a lot of people are running IT knowing they've got X amount of cloud environments, X amount of applications, X amount of end user devices, but not actually thinking about what business processes do we need to run and how quickly do we need to get them back up and running again. Now I can restore you at 2 terabytes a day, or I can restore you at 270 terabytes an hour, depending on how you've actually architected your environment. But what we do need to do is make sure we truly understand that IT, what IT needs to continue to function under duress and under attack. So the approach the industry is turning to is making sure that when we actually are taking the data, we're not just backing it up. I suppose if I wanted to use an analogy for today that's rather appropriate, is we need to cyber socially distance the data. Now, that's only one part of the job. And of course, a lot of companies are looking to work out solutions to this. And that's take the data, put it in a cleaning room, not clean room, a cleaning room, and make sure that you are rule-based anomaly detection that data. So even if you can't detect the virus, you can detect the impact of the virus on file changes and file sizes. And then, of course, vault it away in immutable storage in a way that the hackers can't get to. But then you also need to make sure that you can automate and orchestrate your recovery, and it's very quick and it's in line with business risk appetite. Now, the two measurements that the boards are now focusing on, especially in the financial financial industries that are regulated, let's try that one again. They are looking at two measurements, which is RPO and RTO. That's recovery point objective and recovery time objective. That means if you do crash at midday, recovery point objective, let's say, might be an hour, which means I've got to get you back to 11 a.m. And recovery time objective is I have an hour to get you back, which means by 1 p.m. I have to revert you back to 11 a.m. Now, having real-time RTO and RPO measurements of your recovery ability allows every company to understand what their real business risk position is. Now, real-time RTO and RPO will allow you to realize that it's 17 hours to a restore, which means you have the ability to then go back to the business and say, can the business afford to be going down for this long? Sadly, what I see now is that a lot of companies don't even know how long it will take them to recover. And even worse, they are not looking at putting any cyber impact in when they go and do the backup and assume that all is well in the kingdom. And of course, it's even more impacted, not because hackers are targeting it, but of course, with active, high availability, third copy. Everyone says we don't need DR. But of course, you do need DR. You do need backup to make sure you can recover. So in summary, security and resilience do go hand in hand. And actually, I would like to be more provocative to say resilience covers all risks, not just security risks, because we have to work out how to recover in any situation and also make sure that you can recover in line or almost immediately with that impact, or be able to fail over to a secondary, let's say, skeleton environment so the business can continue to function. Now, we all know that he or she who protects everything protects nothing. So, of course, people worry about what they should protect and make sure that they can go back to, which means you have to look at your minimum viable company. You have to look at where the business owners are and what applications that they are using, what applications to where they are stored, potentially with suppliers, and then, of course, work out those primary data stores and how long it takes to be able to recover from that. And that is the only way out to make sure that you have a real control of your IT to make sure it functions correctly. Now, you can see that I'm very passionate about this subject, and I hope within my lifetime that we actually have an ability to learn scratch and burn mentalities so we can get away from the damage the hackers are doing and ensure that we can continue to function and maintain core purpose and integrity. Thank you very much for your time today. Keep safe, keep smiling, and stay resilient.